Welcome to Coffee with Democrats, a sensible platform for progressive conversations. Coffee with Democrats is a grassroots movement dedicated to hearing from Democrats, candidates, legislators, and friends from all political backgrounds who want great conversations. Coffee with Democrats is committed to increase Democrat voter registration and Democrat voter turnout by making voting more exciting and meaningful. And now here's your host of Coffee with Democrats, Kevin Dawson.
Welcome to this special presentation of the Oklahoma Democratic Party discussion panel held at the University of Oklahoma on March 9th, 2024, featuring Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison, Oklahoma State Senator Julia Kurt, Oklahoma House of Representatives Jason Lowe from House District 97, Representative Amanda Swope, House District 71, and Representative Arturo Alonso Sandoval, House District 89. The Master of Ceremonies is Alicia Andrews, Oklahoma Democratic Party Chair. We here at Coffee with Democrats hope you enjoy this special presentation.
We'd like to take this opportunity to welcome everyone here to Norman and Cleveland County. And thank you to our Cleveland County officers who are present here this afternoon for being our hosts here at OU. If you're a Cleveland County officer, just raise your hand and wave, please. My name is Matthew Lucas. I am one of the State Affirmative Action Officers on our Central Committee for the Oklahoma Democratic Party. And as our chair, I would like to welcome Alicia Andrews to get us kicked off this afternoon. Thank you all very much.
Good afternoon. Thank you so very much for everybody who's time out of their Saturday to be here. And thank you to our elected officials who know that people work here around the world. So thank you so very much for being here. Y'all didn't come to hear me. Y'all came to hear our wonderful elected officials and Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison. So I'm not going to stay here and do a lot of talking. You guys are going to hear enough from me. But I'd like to take a moment and introduce Minnesota's Attorney General Keith Ellison.
How's everybody doing today? I want to thank you all for being here myself. The sky is just so blue and beautiful. And I was thinking man, we're going to be inside. Okay, these are the dedicated ones, right? These are the hardcore, the people who believe. And I'm so glad you do believe, and I'm so glad you care about the values of the Democratic Party, Oklahoma Democrats, because as you saw just the other night, President Biden versus the response, the challenges before our country are serious, and the choices are very, very clear. And we need fired up Democrats everywhere. And we need people who can be ambassadors and can go out there and encourage people to get involved, to participate, and rather than just, yell, throw your house shoes at the television set, get out there and organize somebody. That is what this moment calls for. And I'm telling you, organizing people is rewarding, it's fun, it's personally enriching. When I think of the times in politics that I have enjoyed the most, it has been knocking on doors and getting people who have never voted before to actually come to the polls and seeing the smile on their face when they've been a part of making our society better. That's right. We're going to need to hold the presidency. We're going to have to do it for all the down ballot candidates as well. You and I know that a lot of people go to the polls because they're voting for the top of the ticket, but then they stay and vote for the rest of the ticket. For everybody else on that ticket, getting those people to those polls is extremely important. Now this time, I'm going to tell you, I was looking for some guy who was so old that he was feeble and asleep in the middle of his speech. I was looking for a guy who was like, where's my glasses, I was looking for some old dude who was, who just really didn't have it together. What I saw is a fiery, sharp, ready to get out there and work with What I saw is somebody who was ready to defend their own record, who was not getting back down at all. And then, shockingly, I saw some other folks who who have taken incivility to a higher level than I've ever seen it, turn around and accuse him of being uncivil because he had a little bit of passion. I'm telling you, the other side, and you saw it from the response, doesn't have a program to help Americans. On the one hand, we're talking about $35 insulin for seniors and everybody coming pretty soon. On the other side, you got, oh, here's who I think you should hate. Let's start with the gangs, let's move to the immigrants, let's move to somebody else. We got a long list of people you shouldn't like, and that's all they're willing to offer is just division and negativity.
That's right.
So I believe that love conquers all. I got a feeling, I was just talking to a pastor over here. I'm right about that, am I not? See, we got clerical authority, love conquers all. And we've got to take that message and we've got to knock on every door in Oklahoma and we've got to bring people into this race. And we've got to inspire people and help people remember that it wasn't too long ago that we had statewide gyms in Oklahoma. Who remembers that? It's well within our memory. And we can do it again, but it's going to take a lot of shoe leather and knocking on doors and building relationships. Last thing I want to say before I sit down is there's something magical about presence. Just being there. Has anybody ever had the misfortune of spending a day or two in the hospital? I have. And some people come and they don't even talk to you, they just watch TV with you, read your paper. And then when you get out and you're feeling better, you see that person and you feel a certain bond with them, even though you don't remember what you talked about. And then there's somebody else who said, oh, I heard you were sick. Yeah, I was coming to come see you, but sorry about that. And you're like, yeah, thanks for the nice word, but you weren't present with me. Voters are the same way. If you are present with them, if you take a moment with them, you don't have to have the magic message. You got to be present. If somebody says, well, what's a democratic message? You say, get a walk sheet and knock a door. That's the message. Build a relationship. Get to know people, and they will trust you, and they will come out, and OK Dems will be leading the nation when it comes to reflecting the democratic values of prosperity, shared prosperity, equality, and respect for everybody. So thanks for inviting me.
Thank you for that. So, when I envisioned this panel today, what I was hoping was to inspire Democrats to run for office, to inspire Democrats to pick candidates to help support and get across the finish line, inspire Democrats to care again. And the fact that you're here, I believe that we were happy there. We have Democrats who are encouraged. But then when I asked these elected officials to come, and I changed the schedule on them, and I changed the plan on them, and they still showed up. I want to say thank you, and I want you all to give a good round of applause. So I am going to introduce who we have here, and I'm going to start in ranking order. Alrighty, so we have Senator Julia Kirk from Senate District 30. Representative Jason Lowe from House District 97. Representative Amanda Swope from House District 71. And our youngest representative, Representative Arturo Alonso from House District 89. So I have a couple of questions because I want to engage folks. I want you guys to hear from them. And so I'm going to ask questions about running for office, extremism in politics, overcoming obstacles, fighting for what you believe in, and how Democrats can win. So my first question, I'm going to ask Representative Alonso and just work our way this way. So the first question I'm going to ask everybody. Say your name, office you hold, your length of service, and what you did before becoming a representative.
Hello everyone, it's an honor to be here. I'd like to mention my name is Arturo Alonso. I'm currently serving as state representative for House District 89 located in the decided to throw myself into the political world. I was finishing my last semester at the University of Oklahoma, where we are now, and I got my degree in mechanical engineering. And as many of you might know, engineers tend to not be the most politically engaged people. But I care a lot about my states, especially being a young person in the political world. We have a lot of states and a lot of decisions being made. So I was a student. I was kind of like your typical disengaged young person that didn't really engage a lot of what was going on in the political world. But because of leaders in our state, I was inspired to run for office. So I'm honored to be here.
My name is Jason Lowe. I'm State Representative for House District 97, as was indicated before. I am also a practicing attorney, so that's why I practiced law for over 15 years as a practicing attorney. And what basically drove me to run for office was the fact that I saw a lot of people being incarcerated for non-violent offenses, and they weren't receiving treatment as far as mental health treatment, they weren't receiving substance abuse treatment, and I wanted to see what I can do on the legislative level to make a change, so when I go into court on the district level, I could apply the laws that I've enacted to help people. I think we go into office to help people, and unfortunately, in this legislature, it seems like we're not. First of all, it's amazing to be in a room with like-minded Democrats. It's an awesome feeling because when I go into the legislature, in the House, there's 101 legislators and only 20 are Democrats. On the Senate side, I believe there's 6 senators, 8 senators out of 48. So it's just a wonderful feeling to be here with you all, and the State of the Union was amazing. I totally agree. I was energized to see our president do what he did. So go Joe Biden.
Good afternoon, y'all. I'm Julia Kurt. I represent Senate District 30. That's in Oklahoma City. I represent part of Bethany and 4 Acres as well. I got elected in 2018. And really for me, I've spent 20 plus years running nonprofit organizations working with artists around the state. So working in the arts for all that time, helping artists and young artists seek their visions in this community, in rural communities, in urban communities across the state. And really, I didn't realize how spoiled I was to get to see that level of creativity and imagination in our state, and that ability to dream and envision what was possible for our state. And I think over time, as I learned more about our state leadership, I understood that we weren't doing that in the state capitol, that we weren't imagining what was possible. We weren't building up the creative potential of people, and that broke my heart. I really felt like I've seen what's possible with even one creative person in a community taking leadership, and I'm not seeing that in the state capitol. So I think that background in the arts really prepared me to not settle. And I think that's one of the big challenges in our state, is that we cannot settle for the way things have been. The other things I have to mention is that I did vote for the first time in Minnesota because I went to college in St. Paul, Minnesota, at Macalester College. And I'll tell you that the part, I will always remember that first vote. I'll always remember seeing Senator Paul Wellstone come in for a rally on campus, which was really inspiring. But the thing that blew me away and made me forever grateful and motivated to help other people vote was my colleagues, my fellow students who were South African. And during my time in college, they were able to vote for the very first time. You know how long apartheid stayed in our world. They lined up to vote at their local embassy in St. Paul during my time in college. And I'll never forget that, and was so aware of our privilege.
Good afternoon. I'm Representative Amanda Swope. I represent House District 71 out of Tulsa, which runs along the Riverside area, has gathering places, if you're familiar with that. I was elected in 2022. Prior to the legislature and even still now, I work for my tribal nation, the Association. I'm a citizen there. I'm also a citizen of Osage Nation. I've worked with the tribe since 2018. It's amazing how much I've reached that prior to that, I was our self-governance analyst, which was really analyzing the federal impact policy of crime and negotiating our compacts with federal agencies. I guess my time prior to the legislature was a little bit two-tiered. I've always done that kind of work as my full-time job, but as some of the excellent volunteer work that I'm sure some of you all engage in as well, I was the chair of the Tulsa County Democratic Party. Trying to keep people motivated during 2020 was a very huge feat, and I think that our office did a really good job, or at least I hope that others would agree with that. But yeah, my role has always been kind of policy and politics, and so I think running for the legislature, that all just kind of started to become enmeshed. And one thing about being chair is whenever you're asking people and trying to encourage them to run for office, it's frequently put back on you of, when are you going to run for office? So now I've ran, so I don't want to hear from anybody else.
Well, I want to acknowledge Representative AJ. You can see here, you want to stand up and say whatever? Good to see you. You know, you all remember me. Ellison, I'm the Attorney General for the state of Minnesota. I used to be in Congress for about 12 years. I served with all of your Oklahoma members, know them all. It's just a joy to be with you today. It really is an honor. And can't wait to talk to you about running for office. Is anybody here thought about running for office? Okay, that's great. Man, I'm not just taking care of my own kids, I'm taking care of my mom who's 85. Yes. And I'm dealing with it all. Who knows better than you the challenges of the average Oklahoma family trying to take care of things and put food on the table? Don't count yourself out. Some people say, well, you know, I'm an immigrant, I just got my citizenship, you know. But don't you all remember Arnold Schwarzenegger talking about Olive Doc? He was the governor of the state and had a strong Austrian accent. Nobody cares about your accent. And the president was named Barack Hussein Obama. So what's your excuse? My point is, do not look for ways to count yourself out. The senator was talking about art. We need artists running for office. Being an artist is not just making pretty music. That inspires too. So let's all start thinking about, and by the way, it's not a life sentence, right? You get in there, you do a couple of terms, and then you let somebody else do it. So you don't think of it as like, I gotta do this forever. You don't have to do it forever. Or you might do it forever. But look, take one term at a time. You can do 4 years, right? So I want everybody to be thinking about, maybe I should run for something. Sorry.
So, along that vein, everyone who is currently running for something, please stand.
Yeah.
Stay standing. Okay, so everybody who's not standing, I need you to look at those folks, figure out which one of them you're going to help. They all need your help.
I got business cards.
Right, we have Oklahoma City represented, Midwest City, all of CV2, Shawnee, Western Oklahoma City, is that Norman?
Northwest Oklahoma City.
Northwest Oklahoma City. So we have folks from all over the state here. So if you don't live in Norman and you think, okay, I'm off the hook, you're not. We have folks from all over the place here. Find a candidate. These folks, you don't have to run this time. Everybody else is on the ballot. So they need help, door knocking, writing checks, those kinds of things. Look at these folks. Figure out how you can help them, please. You guys can see that. Thank you for running. And I do want to recognize our current elected officials. Representative A.J. Pittman from House District 99. Is that everybody? Elizabeth Norman, City Council, right here in Norman. And before we get too far, I want to thank the staff of ODP for putting this together. I want to thank our interim executive director, Lauren Craig. You all know her. If you don't know her, you've seen her moving around. Back to the panel. So my next question for you guys is this. Do you have a passion cause? Like when a bill comes up, one of your passion causes that you are like really important, you really want to fight for it. And we don't have to go in a certain order. Anybody who wants to speak up.
I mean, sure. One of my challenges is that I can't silo issues. I tend to understand that they all overlap. So recently, I've been very focused around housing, eviction, and homelessness and the intersection of that. But of course, you know, many things cause that. But just this week, we saw a bill that would ask cities to arrest individuals sleeping on state property. And I think that would just take us back in time in terms of, instead of actually helping people, trying to figure out how to get them out of their challenges, it literally, the author said that people could just move along across the street and that would be fine with him. And what I've seen in my community is that means a lot of folks are in neighborhoods or in businesses and they still don't have the help they need. So the confluence of housing, mental health, and poverty, you know, trying to help people make a living wage, I can't stop. I can't sit down on that one.
What I've seen is a rollback on 780. You know, that was passed by the voters in the state of Oklahoma. And what I'm seeing is nonviolent crimes are starting to be put in categories. Okay. Well, if you're not aware of what 780 is, it changed nonviolent crimes and lowered the threshold as far as the range of punishment. And the voters in the state of Oklahoma approved it. But as I was saying, our prisons were crowded at one point, and they still are. And what they're doing is they're making nonviolent crimes 85% crimes, which are 85% crimes means that you have to serve 85% of your time of your incarceration. So obviously our prisons are going to be overcrowded. Secondly, what I'm seeing is at one point we had the highest rate of incarceration for women in the state of Oklahoma. And we're going backwards, and we're going back to that, where everything that basically trying to incarcerate people, we're trying to incarcerate our way, quote unquote, out of this problem. So I think we have to push back. We got to call our legislators. We got to make sure that they're aware that we do not believe in incarcerating folks without helping them, without having a plan for them when they exit out of prison, a job, or making sure that you learn a trade. So you could be a productive, tax-paying citizen. And I think we're moving away from that, so that's something we need to focus on as a constituency and also as voters.
I think for me, one of the big issues I care a lot about is environmental sustainability. My background's in mechanical engineering, and before, whenever I was at OU, I did a lot of research in studying air particles and soil samples to see how air pollution would eventually impact human health, soil health, and water health. And a few weeks ago, we had a bill that dealt with poultry operations, because in northeastern Oklahoma, there's a lot of large poultry feeding operations, and the law would essentially just loosen a lot of the regulations we have when it comes to chicken poop getting into our water streams. So I remember having a lot of conversations with people about that bill specifically, and it was a crappy bill, literally. Chicken poop, pun in there, but I care a lot about environmental sustainability because as a young legislator, I think a lot about the future. One of the big reasons I decided to run for office is because the decisions made right now are going to be impacting us for decades to come. And oftentimes, legislators are only focused on the next election, not so much on the next generations. So I really want to make sure that we're more mindful, and a lot of other legislators recognize that the decisions we're making now are impacting, their kids, their grandkids, because, being the youngest member currently in office, I care a lot about my future, and I want to make sure we're in a sustainable world that can continue providing us what we need to thrive as people. So that's something I'm very passionate about. Another thing is also one of the big issues going on nationally right now, which deals with immigration. Right now, 70% of my district is Latino, and a huge chunk of those people, they might not be citizens, but they're contributing members of the community that pay their taxes, that work hard, and oftentimes, because of political rhetoric being thrown out, they're labeled as criminals, as terrorists, and a big focus for me has really been to try to push back on a lot of the misinformation, a lot of the negative and oftentimes false stereotypes that people have on the immigrant community, thinking that they're bringing drugs, bringing all sorts of things that aren't productive to Oklahoma. But in reality, and recognizing that I'm also the son of immigrant parents, they've instilled in me what the American dream really is. Really working hard and making sure that you're doing as much as you can to not only provide for yourself, but your family, and in doing so, they provide so much for the state of Oklahoma and the nation as a whole. And it's been tough to see a lot of legislation that directly targets the undocumented community that is trying to do as much as they can to provide for themselves and really get back to the state of Oklahoma. So those, I would say, are two of some of the big issues I'm focusing on right now.
Most of my priorities coming into the legislature were tribal issues, obviously, voting rights, being somebody who was involved with the chair or with the party before, child welfare issues because of my profession. I think that being a freshman or being in our freshman term, I'm still trying to find, what I want my niche to be. I think that's the legislation that I focus on that I'm introducing, but when I look at legislation that I support or that I help co-author that other people are working on, I try to gravitate towards things that I really think will help individual Oklahomans and individual families, no matter kind of what scale that's looking at. I mean, let's see, we saw Representative Rosencrantz do one this week that was about reinstating recess in schools, which a lot of studies have shown is very important for children and their development. But even something as simple as, actually Representative Colbert did a bill this past week that required all state agencies to have a callback system for calling back people that have called if they don't want to wait on hold for a long time. And that's something that's so simple that really does help individual people as opposed to industries and things like that. That's become really apparent for me in tax policy too. I'm always going to look and support things that I think are going to help Oklahoma families, and try to be really thoughtful about if and when we're extending any kind of tax incentive to industries that are coming here or that continue to build here.
Well, real quick, I've been spending a lot of time thinking about public safety. And I think us Dems need to think a lot more about public safety. Why? Because we all want to be safe. No one wants to be a victim of violent crime or financial exploitation. And yet we always let ourselves get sucked into this trap where, we're concerned about the rights of people who go through the criminal justice system. Well, yeah, we should be. We also need to be concerned about people who are victimized by criminals, scammers, and people who commit crimes against folks. I think we need to think more. We all agree that if you hurt somebody, you're going to have to face justice. but we need to work out what that looks like. But can we also agree that a jail cell is not the only way to create public safety? So we're talking about a few things in let me just, full disclosure, I am a gun owner. If it's pheasant hunt, pheasant season, deer season, I'm gonna be in a stand, trying to do what I do. But we have more mass shootings than we have days in a year. That's crazy. This whole gun conversation is insane. This is not really about guns. It's not about the right to bear arms, it's about the right to sell arms. And we need to come clear on that. There are certain gun manufacturers who make their weapon so that it is easy and conducive to put on switches where you get off 80 rounds, bump stock, stuff like that. There's no reason for that. That's not good home defense. You can't even control a weapon that's letting off rounds that fast. We need to do something about it. It's not that nobody here should be worried, oh, he doesn't like the Second Amendment. Man, I'm always using the Second Amendment. Go Yanks. I got meat in my locker to prove it. But my point is, this conversation is crazy talk. So I'm suing a retailer who negligently sold guns to a straw purchaser, who then sold those guns to some folks who got into a mass shooting and killed a young lady. So we're suing that straw purchaser because we're suing that company that sold to the straw purchaser because they should have known better, and if they did the proper background, they would never have sold that gun. This dude, the straw purchaser, sold 37 guns within a few weeks, same model. He's got his cell phone out on FaceTime. You want this one? Not that one? Okay, this one. And so I had some right-wingers say, oh, he's after our guns. I'm like, if you're not with me on this, then you're dishonest and a liar. Because no responsible gun owner should want a stream of guns going to people who commit crimes out on the street. So we should really think about this. More mass shootings than days in a year. Here's another case I'm pursuing. All of these car thefts. And you should know that if you drove here in a car, if you drove in a car that's not a Kia or a Hyundai, then there's a 98% chance that you have anti-theft equipment on that car. But if you drove in on a Kia Hyundai, which is a few years old, probably doesn't, only about a 25% chance. And if you talk to law enforcement, you say which cars are being stolen, they're gonna say Kia and Hyundai. And Kia and Hyundai should not just be raking in the dough because they did not spend money to put anti-theft equipment on. And while we're at it, how can TikTok and YouTube get away with putting up instructional videos on how to steal cars? The Kia boys blew up on TikTok. So these are things that are civil. They're not even criminal prosecutions, they're civil, but they will stop car thefts, which will stop high-speed chases, which will save lives, and also keep guns off the street. And then some of these hotels selling rooms by the hour. There's even one of them that I'm about to sue who had a stripper pole in the room. You tell me they're not doing sex trafficking out of that hotel? You tell me they don't know what's going on in that hotel? So they should be sued too. And suing them is sometimes civilly is easier because you don't have to prove. I'm a prosecutor. I'm a criminal prosecutor, and I don't have no problem taking somebody's liberty if they're hurting people. I make no apologies for it. But what I will say is, but those people who I prosecute, they're not the only ones causing this harm. And we need to go upstream. And some of the people who are in yacht clubs, golf clubs, country clubs, making all kinds of money off of the chain of criminality, got to answer to.
So we live in a state of extremism. Extreme policies, extreme bills come across our state legislature every session. So my question for you, is, and this is going to, how do you ask them to run for office when they see the kinds of bills, how do you keep going, seeing those bills and arguing those bills?
Me first. Well, I think 2020 did prepare me for that a lot. When I took the chair's position in 2018, I don't think that I anticipated it would be quite as bad as it was, but the pandemic helped with that in a lot of ways. I think it just comes from realizing, kind of the old sentiment of if not you, who, and if not now, when. And we're not there dealing with it and trying to be some kind of roadblock. Who's going to be? I've also been told from personal friends that I speak to other things better than a lot of other people, so I think try to do that too. I tell a lot of my friends they get very upset about politics and about everything that's going on, that if you allow these people to take away your mental health and your emotional peace, you're letting them win anyway. So do what you can to be making sure that you are maybe enjoying your time away from working in politics, whatever that is, still stay engaged. But I think it's also about, coming from a social work background, a lot of it is about making sure that you're taking care of yourself before you take care of other people. And I think that a lot of the issues that come up right now that cause so much conflict are things that people deeply care about that. And I'm not saying I don't care about it. A lot of social work also teaches you about not necessarily personalizing the problem, not allowing it to be something that affects your personal daily life so much that you can't carry on. So I think it's just about trying to find balance, like I said, making sure you take time for yourself and maybe try to find a good time in running Republicans Day, because if you've got one.
So everything she said is absolutely right. I'll add on this: don't do it alone. If you know crazy stuff is coming up on the docket, if you've gotten advance notice that their wackadoodle bill is coming up, you all should be co-governing with them. That means put the word out, the crazy bill's coming up, we need everybody to show up at the State House, and then, if you can, fill up those seats and come and testify on how it's going to hurt you. Never underestimate the power of story. Tell your story. They can debate statistics, but they cannot debate your story. So use your story and say, look, if this bill passes, it's going to hurt me and my family like this, this, and this. Well,
I serve on the House Judiciary Committee which deals with criminal bills, and I can tell you, I deal with a lot of crazy bills. I think we had a bill I know we had a bill this session dealing with labeling Hispanics terrorists. Just nonsense. So I would think that would motivate individuals to run for office, that would motivate people to vote. But what I see sometimes is people not calling my office or not showing up to the Capitol, as the Attorney General indicated. We have to engage, we have to motivate, especially our young folks. What's most disheartening is when I knock doors or I campaign and I talk to a young person who's 18 years of age, and they indicate to me they don't want to vote, nothing will change. So we have to change that mindset.
I definitely agree with that, because I know they try to apply young people, try to do a lot of work in engaging, especially with the high schools in my district. And one of the common sentiments is that, why should I go to Iowa? It doesn't even matter, it's not going to go anywhere. But I try to bring it back to the local and state level, because that's where the elections really do matter. We have so much more of an impact to make a difference in our states. But oftentimes, the civic education only focuses on what's happening in Washington, D.C. But I think as soon as we start recognizing the value of local elections and recognizing that the culture of the election is to you, the more direct impact it has. I think a lot of people tend to minimize more local, school board, city council, state legislature, but that's where we have the opportunity and the potential to make a huge impact. And unfortunately, a lot of the people currently in power do as much as they can to disenfranchise young people people of color, people that come from local backgrounds from voting. And they're successful at it, unfortunately, because whenever the political makeup is 81 to 20 within the state house and 40 to 80, 4 to 80, sorry. 4 to 8 to 40, messed up the numbers. But whenever we got to minorities, it's not a uphill battle. But I know that's why I feel a lot more motivated to bring people in and support candidates that are running for office and that are trying to do what they can to make sure we have more representation in these positions of power. And I know a big thing that I've been focusing on. I didn't realize how much of an organizer I can be in being a legislator as well, but it comes with the job. It comes with trying to bring in people that haven't been engaged with politics before. Because I know one of the things I learned about my community, especially down in the south side of Oklahoma City, which is predominantly local families, predominantly Hispanic, is that it's the part of time that's the most disengaged in the entire state. And Oklahoma's already last in the nation when it comes to voter turnout and civic engagement. And that's what established more important place to engage people that oftentimes haven't been engaged in the past. So that's why I'm motivated to continue doing the work that I've been doing. It can definitely be tough, but it's definitely worth doing. And like I said, before I wasn't the most engaged person, but because of leaders, because politics impacts every single aspect of our lives, the way we live our lives, we all have space and stuff going on. So that's one of the things that I think helps me, is to bring people in to what we're doing, because we shouldn't, as our general said from Minnesota, we shouldn't do it alone. There's a community of people out there that want to help with politics, we don't know how to. So bringing more people in is the way we should really try to move forward, to build more of that collective activism.
So in terms of running, for me, I was more frustrated when I didn't have a vote. Sometimes it's hard. We're sitting there and a bill comes up that you just can't believe is going to be on party lines. Or even closer than that, you're one of 3 or 5 people voting no on something, but it is very satisfying to vote no, y'all. It is. Because I look at history. I remember reading, I read a Lincoln biography a couple years ago that talked about the Illinois State House confirming slavery, and there was one person that voted no, and I was just like, thank you. Thank you to that person for being the one to vote no. I'm not saying we're facing that, but I think being at the table is worth it. Our process allows no testimony. There's 0 public testimony in our process, so we have to be the voice of the people. And so the opportunity to ask those questions is very meaningful to me. But I'll say running for office, people prepared me how ugly it would be, and I found it mostly just awkward. Knocking on doors for me is absolutely the way that I get out of the bubble and get out of that mindset. Because when you're in the Capitol, you start thinking you're real important, that these conversations are exactly what people are facing, but getting out of the bubble and actually talking to people at their homes is the result from that. Because people are not simple, they have complex lives, they have all kinds of reasons that they've grown up with, values that they have, and when you talk to them, they see you too are complex, and that you are not, that stereotype of a Democrat. And I'll tell you that my first race, I knocked on 20,000 doors over a year and a half. And I only had 2 doors slammed in my face in that time period. So, number one, I was being targeted by my folks, but I was mainly targeting Republicans and independents because my district was a Republican district. So, people will engage with you. And I think we have to be the ones to go out and do that. We talk about organizing because those face-to-face conversations were so much different than what we have when we're on a phone or on mediated devices. My mom was my main volunteer. She went out, she talked to people, she tried to engage them, and tried to break down that apathy that people felt. And it blows people's minds when you show up at their door. I have a lot of low-income neighborhoods. I have some very, very hard luck mobile home parks. I will never forget knocking those doors and the people who answered and felt like they were truly part of our democracy because someone was showing up to listen to them. And look, I'm even getting goosebumps right now. Like, it's valuable and it's hard, but it's worth that time to get out of the bubble.
Okay, Steve.
I'm sorry, I didn't want to pass the word. I'll be so fast. The low turnout is not an accident. It is a concerted strategy to control vote. They're doing this. There's this guy named Paul Wayrick. You ever heard of Paul Wayrick? Anybody ever heard of him? He said, he said he's talking to a bunch of Republican evangelical Christians. He's talking to them. And he says to them, some of you keep on trying to get everybody to vote. I don't want everybody to vote. In fact, our chances of electoral success go up as the size of the electorate goes down. It's almost equal. They want it. And so here's the thing. When you get somebody to say, voting doesn't matter, my goodness, what a great win for their side. They don't even have to try to suppress your vote. You're suppressing your own vote. And my question to my friends who say voting doesn't matter, I said, well, why do they work so hard to stop you from voting then? If it doesn't matter. Introduce this bill. Anybody who's on, can people who are on felony parole or parole or probation vote in Oklahoma? Introduce that bill. We actually, right. We have, let me tell you, I don't write the law anymore. I just enforce it. But 20 years ago, I was a state legislator, and I introduced that bill, and it passed in 2023. And we're defending it in court right now. Get some offensive, expand the vote bills, and campaign around them. And I'm going to tell you one great campaign thing is they will not let you speak in your legislature. That's a campaign thing. You can run ads on that. People will not like that. Conservatives won't like that. So, sorry for the intervention.
Not voting is not a protest. It is a surrender of trust.
Very true. Absolutely.
So speak real quick. How many times does someone have to ask you before you said, yes, I will run? No one asked me.
No one asked me. It's me, I'll be honest.
I would say countless times. I mean, I would over 10 times was I asked. How many were serious and not just the defense of you, right, not me? Probably a lot, but
I was one of them.
yeah, for two. Definitely over 10 times, for sure.
Well, I will add that I did come to the Carl Albert Center, had an awesome program for pipeline politics, and that was a tipping point for me. So it wasn't asked officially, but I went in and I knew Sally Sosa was available to me. So I'm a resource person. So when I cracked the door and I knew there were resources, that's what pushed me over it.
That was my next question.
Okay, sorry.
So, what was the tipping point? What was the tipping point, even those who weren't asked, that made you decide to run?
I went to pipeline politics, and at the end of the day, my kids were 5 and 8 at that time, and I thought they were too young. But at the end of the day, I thought, well, this isn't very different than nonprofit work. Like, I think I can do this someday. I opened that door, but I thought someday, because my kids were little, and the next week my state senator said that he wasn't running. So for me, it's tipping the door from that workshop, thinking about those skills that I would be able to put to work, but also knowing there were resources available to me.
I think the tipping point for me was when I would walk into courthouses and county jails and I see people that look like me that are not receiving the services that they deserve, or the mental health, substance abuse, mental health services and substance abuse treatment that they deserve. So I think that was the tipping point where I wanted to change the laws where we can actually rehabilitate people as opposed to focus primarily on incarceration.
I think for me, it definitely took a while because I never dreamed of doing something like this because I didn't see people that looked like me, spoke like me. I came from my background doing this, so I didn't have anyone like myself doing this. So I wanted to serve as that testament to a lot of people within my community that we can do this, that we do belong in these spaces to make decisions. and at least to try to fight against the bad ones. So that's whenever I felt motivated because, like I said, I never had anyone like me, growing up. So I wanted to provide that to the next young people to show them that we can belong.
Okay, Michael. Let's see, the tipping point for me, probably the COVID pandemic. I'll tell you guys a crazy story, and I don't tell a lot of people this story. Okay, during the COVID pandemic, I had already gone to grad school during Trump's election process in 2016. Learning, getting an MPA degree, learning about public policy while you're watching somebody take the American government system and completely dismantle it from what you're learning that it's supposed to be was intense. And then coming out of that into a global pandemic and all of that, and working in politics, having people ask when you can run. I think everybody kind of hit an identity crisis during COVID. And I kind of had that moment of, wow, politics is not anything what I thought it was going to be anymore. It's completely different. And you had that moment that I think a lot of young people have in Oklahoma of, am I going to stay here and keep doing the work, or am I going to abandon this and jump ship? And I felt kind of stalled due to anxiety on next steps on what I was going to do. And so I took everything that I wanted to do in my life, or that I've been considering doing, and I literally wrote it down on pieces of paper and I put it in a hat. So that included things like running for office, going to law school, fostering and adopting children, and I think was just looking for some guidance from the universe about what to do next, and run for office is what I pulled out.
Awesome.
Yeah, I ran for office because I went to the state legislature. They were pushing some crazy bills, just like 2003, 2004. I went home complaining to my wife about these legislators and what they were doing and how wrong it was. And she said, well, they're probably doing the best they can. And if you think you can do better, maybe you should run yourself. So I did. And that was 20 years ago, and I'm sitting in front of you right now. But I'm telling you this, for those of you thinking about running, it is rewarding. It's not all drug related. And there's a certain thrill that you get from being able to be on the front line fighting for your neighbors. It's not all, sometimes we complain because these people we work with are aggravating, but it is truly a privilege to represent your neighbors. So I want y'all to think about it. Don't be discouraged about it.
So I have a real huge list of questions, but you guys are here. So now is the time for our question and answer portion from the audience. So, does anyone have a question for anyone on our panel?
Josh will go first.
Helping your kids, Destiny today. Helping exercise and care about that. So as noted, I am a council member here in Norman, so I'm so glad you all are in our neighborhood today. I am running for some District 15. If you don't know, we're very fortunate. Cleveland County is the safe haven, is the blue star in the state of Oklahoma, and that's really wonderful. But when we see people watching run or talk about it, the biggest export of the Republican Party is manufactured chaos, right? They come forward with this rhetoric and can seem really overwhelming and bad, and people don't really know how to respond to that. So what advice would you give someone when they're met with that kind of discourse?
Thank you for the question. Well, I don't know how many of you all in this room heard, but I ran a homeschool bill this year, which I quickly learned is apparently not something you should do in Oklahoma. To the point that even Republicans were like, oof, tough go of it. But yeah, I got a lot of pushback of that. Within the first month of this year, I was called a And I think that as all of these kind of conversations rolled in from people, I really just tried to focus on the reality. A lot of them, I think, tried to twist the legislation to be something that was about interfering with their right to teach their child through a religious lens. And that really wasn't where I was trying to come at it from. I was trying to come at it from a different direction, so I kept it on that side of the conversation. I kept it on the fact that teachers in traditional school systems are subject to background checks. When you're being homeschooled, that's not the case. That there's educational standards for children that are using traditional education. Also not the case with homeschool students. Kids that are homeschooled don't have access to court-mandated reporters the way that kids in traditional school systems do. And so I really tried to continue to focus it back on that issue of it, and not being about the education that they're teaching, so to speak, but the fact that the lack of oversight was opening a door for child abuse and neglect in this state. I took meetings with people, I talked to them, I listened to what they were saying. A lot of it is the same thing that you'll hear over and over with a lot of these bills, so it ends up becoming kind of repetitious and easy to combat, because you know what they're going to say. First it was, oh, well, it's homeschooling versus public school. And I said, well, that's not what it is. It's not about education. And then it was, well, why do you think DHS should get involved? And it became an issue with DHS. And then it became this argument of their quote-unquote constitutional right, which was not an accurate interpretation of the article that they were citing. And then it really got down to what their really, really base point was. And their base point was, I just don't want the government in my life. And that was the real reality. And so I just kind of tried to keep paying attention to what their argument was walking through it. Realize that people that don't live in your district, that don't vote for you, and that already don't support you, calling you Satan is probably really not that big of a deal. Especially with most of them, because of the way they think, still think that you're a man representing people. So they didn't do a lot of good research, I don't think, either.
This is earlier, one thing I found is we love to focus on one person in the system. So when I was campaigning last time, I got to talk to more Democrats because my district had changed, but people were obsessed with Kevin Stitt. They were obsessed with Governor. And I recognize he's made some very poor policy decisions, and I agree that he's not a good leader. However, he's not the only one in this mix, right? And so we're going through that now with Superintendent Brian Walters. No question, it's a nightmare. And I'm not trying to undermine the fact that I'm not trying to belittle how dangerous his rhetoric is.
From other things, and I watch the timing. We know it's happening, and we fall for it every time because he's so alarming and he's so chaotic. But there's legislators who aren't holding him accountable. There's the governor who's not holding him accountable. There's a state school board that's been appointed that's not holding him accountable. So I think we have to remember that we can't get too fixated on one person. I remember when I was running last time, everyone thought things were going to be great when Governor Fallon was gone. You remember that? Or Jan Reese. Suddenly they seem like statesmen, right? So I would just encourage you, and I try to encourage everyone not to focus on one person in this system.
Can I say this to you? Just always remember and find ways to remind yourself that you're carrying the hopes and the dreams and the fears of your family and your neighbors. And what the people are talking about is just designed to take you away from that. So get real clear and be ready to fortify yourself. The other thing to keep in mind is this. Most of what we do is emotional. It's not logical, it's not statistical. So think of what is emotionally true about your position. And if it takes you more than about 8 words to say it, then it's too long. And you just stick with that. And because it's like basketball. If you're trying to guard that basket and you're going for every head fake, you're gonna get scored on. But if you keep your eyes where they're supposed to be, center mass, gravity, on the numbers, you're going to guard that goal, right? So what I'm saying is, you're asking a very important question. You're asking a fundamental question. And fundamentally, how do you get back out on those doors every day? How do you go to that next community meeting? How do you not cuss out your debate opponent? And it is by maintaining your focus and keeping real clear on why you're there. Your why is your friend, because it'll anchor you when a whole lot of stuff is going on. I hope that helps. Yeah.
Thank you. So this question is for whoever feels most passionate about this and wants to answer. So as a young 20-year-old, I was just wondering, what advice would you give to a young person who wants to run for office in Oklahoma that feels scared because maybe they feel like, oh, I'm not a good fit for my district, or oh, I'm not a white straight man. I'm a queer person, or I'm a person of color, or I'm a person who's marginalized, like I'm Jewish, but I don't connect with Christian voters. So what would you say to that person who's afraid they would not be a good fit to run?
Sorry, guys. Oh, go ahead.
That's a really good question. And that was one of the biggest things I had to get out of my head that I came to just accept that I do belong and I do deserve to be in a position like this. Because whenever you see a lot of young people running for office, it's hard to even imagine yourself doing it. But one of the things that I really focused on is getting out of my own way. Because I know there's always that self-doubt, there's always that kind of like, man, do I even belong in a place like this? There's people that have been doing this for years. I don't, we don't align in different ways. Like, am I gonna know what to say? But it's been incredibly rewarding because a lot of people, the fact that they see a young person running for office motivates them. I didn't know what to expect when it came to knocking on doors. But one of the big responses I got was, man, we need young people running for office. You're the future, you're the change. And that was refreshing. That was unexpected to me because I was like, man, are people gonna think I'm too young? Because I know some people are even old enough to bring or old enough to run for office. But they were motivated. And these were people a lot older than me that were just so excited that a young person was engaged, because I think there is a perception that young people don't care about what's going on, that you are apathetic. But I think we care a lot about all the things happening in the world. And I do think, our generations, and I might be a little wise, but in many ways we are one of the smartest generations. And having access to technology is a double-edged sword. On one hand, we're so connected with everything going on, and we're trying to focus on. But because we're more connected, we have more access to things like empathy and understanding, and really seeing how policy directly impacts people's lives because they're talking about it. And it's been super encouraging to know that a lot of people see a young person like, man, like, hey, you're the hope. So that's what I would tell you. I think young people, the future truly is ours. And we need to take that responsibility because, unfortunately, a lot of the people that we have in power right now, they're looking back at life. And they're not thinking about how the decisions are going to impact generations to come. But I think a lot of us have a huge stake in the decisions being made right now because we're going to have to live with them for so much longer than a lot of people are currently willing.
All I'm going to say is, to your question, the best advice I have is, get up, don't think about yourself. It's not about you. It's about everyone else. If you're thinking about running and your thing is, well, maybe I'm too young, or I'm too old, or I'm an immigrant, or I'm a Muslim, or I'm not, then your focus is wrong. It's not about you. It's not about you. It is about your neighbors. So if you're over here worried about yourself, then your focus is not where it should be. As I was saying to this leader up here, remember that you're carrying the hopes, dreams, and aspirations of your family and your neighbors. And so here's the way you mess up a speech. Am I doing okay? Am I going to look good? Am I going to sound okay? Do people think my suit is wrong? You're going to screw up doing that. You're going to lose, you're going to fail, you're going to make a mistake. Here's how you give a great talk, or you're a great candidate. I'm not in this at all. I'm a message, I'm a vessel, and I'm bringing the noise on behalf of Mrs. McGillicuddy, because she deserves somebody to kick ass for her. So what do you have to do with that? Nothing. You're a functionary. You're bringing it. And so I agree with everything Arturo said. Young people, absolutely lift them up, hold them close. But Arturo knows some young people who are really old in their thinking. And I know some old people who are really cutting edge in their thinking. I mean, I was a Bernie devil. Why do young people love Bernie? He's so old, right? But they don't care that he's young in his thinking. And so, in a way, we want to get away from all of these temporal, short-term, shallow things, sex, race, age. And by the way, if you are a straight white male, please run for office too. No, seriously, because we get into this conversation as Democrats where, but here's the thing. It's not your demographics that's the problem. It is your ideas that are the problem. And if you think that rich people don't have enough money and everyone else has way too much, then I don't want you in office, and I don't care what race, color, or sexual orientation you have, right? And so this is what I'm trying to say. It's be other-centered, and all of this self-doubt stuff, it somehow just floats away.
Okay, I'm not a fan, but I have to say this. Every other April, the press comes to me and says, you know, the legislature is 8% white or whatever. What are you doing about diversity? And I'm saying, you, Ryan. What are you doing? And I say, why are you talking to me? Why are you talking to me? My side of the aisle represents diversity, right? I didn't say, when I put together this panel, okay, I need to make sure that it's really diverse. I called legislators and asked them to show up, and I'm standing here. I'm standing here with women, Native Americans, African Americans, Hispanic Americans. I'm standing here with lawyers, people from nonprofits, engineers. I'm standing here with diversity, unintentionally, because on our side of the aisle, that's what we have. And so we have representation. So if you're thinking, well, maybe I'm a young person, you won't be by yourself. Maybe maybe I should run because I'm not straight. You won't be by yourself, right? Maybe I should run because I'm from a rural community. You might be by yourself. But we need to change that. All right, Katie.
Thank you so much, Alicia. We've been talking a lot about labels recently in this panel right here. One of the labels that gave me pause before I jumped off that precipice into political life like this was the ability of a lot of people to call what you do politicians. I've heard a number of speeches in recent months, and I want to say thank you to everybody who's sitting on this panel right now because you are not politicians. You are public servants. And I know for a lot of us that are looking at one, we don't want that label because it is a very negative label. Granted, it is some of the skill set that you need to be effective at this job. But for those of us that are sitting in this audience today, how do you preserve that desire, that innate drive to be a public servant for all of us instead of just a politician?
I mean, for me, it's just not in me to play games. I think that's a hard thing. But I think it took me a long time to get comfortable with the fact that money and power matter in this world, and that access to power is not equal, and it's not going to get that way unless we push our way in and make that power be changed. And I think in my 20s, I would have been a full-time protester in office. And now I'm willing to do it in a different way. But for me, anyway, we can't change people's perception of like the general politician, and frankly, we use that language. But we show them responsive government.
So, for instance, the things I can control, I'm going to be responsive governance. My office, we have our own goals. I have the most amazing executive assistant in the building, and our goal is to show people what government can be, how we can listen to them well, how we can respond well, how we can get them access to the services they need in a responsive way. And so at least in that very small little microcosm, we are doing the kind of government we hope for, and that we hope we can make people demand in the future.
I'll be brief, but I would say, once you're elected, stay connected to your community. Don't disappear. Where people are disconnected and still show up to events, still knock doors. Just because you're elected, that doesn't mean you stop knocking doors. You have to educate your constituents. So I would say most important, stay connected.
And I definitely want to reiterate with this one what our Attorney Ellison is saying. Be a vessel. Be a vessel for your community, for the people that you represent. Because we're there for the people, for our families, for our neighbors, for the people we care about. Because I know a lot of us, all of us recognize that Oklahoma deserves a lot better than what it has right now. And that requires service. That requires recognizing and empowering people that we do deserve better.
One thing that I think I focused on when you asked about representing all of Oklahoma, I circle back to the voting record that we have that the Attorney General mentioned. And I think about my life growing up and a lot of people that I knew. I have family in rural Oklahoma, I work in rural Oklahoma, but I grew up in the city. I think that overwhelmingly the reason our voting record is so low is because people in this state don't have time to worry about politics. A lot of them are working really hard, they're in high school, they're working multiple jobs, they're trying to take care of their family, they're focused maybe specifically on the issues of their community or their immediate family, what's going on. They do not have the time to make politics a priority that honestly that a lot of all of us have the privilege of making our priority. And so I try to really think about that, about what they're going through as opposed to being on one side of the aisle or not. Another thing I actually think that I said to our chair this week is you don't change enemies' minds, you change friends' minds. And with that, I think that means that you really have to be connecting with people to, even if it's not changing their mind, but maybe getting them more involved in something that they haven't been in before. You have to be able to be their friend and have a connection with them before you can do that.
I have a question. I just learned the 1st of March that Republican Representative Kevin McDougal introduced House Bill 3138. I don't know if it's too late for it or not. A 5-year moratorium on executions. The committee passed it 4-0. And I'm wondering, is it too late or is there hope?
It went to your committee, right?
I'm not familiar with that particular bill. Did it get off the House floor or?
No, it went to judiciary.
I'll have to look into that. I'm not familiar with that particular bill.
Did it go through criminal judiciary?
It went through a House committee, this has been an interesting turn of events because Oklahoma's been the death penalty capital of the nation, unfortunately, and it's been very hard to shift that mindset. But I know that there's an increased Catholic presence, and then really McDougal, it was like a personal thing where he got to know one death penalty, one guy in death row, and the inconsistencies of his case, and something that made him realize, oh, this whole thing may be problematic. So I think that shows, frankly, how one person's story can actually change people's views. Because for him to stick his neck out as a Republican in a state where it's, the numbers are bad in terms of support for the death penalty is overwhelming.
Yeah. And I just want to make sure that we're clear as far as just because you're not on the committee, that does not mean you're on the House floor.
It could be.
It could be,
It's
yes.
still, it's still within the deadline, yeah.
Yes.
Just be aware.
Yeah.
Hang on to that, Jason. How can she influence folks in such a
Influence, show up, contact your legislator, also all other legislators, write, email, gather people in the community, just to make sure that they're aware that you support that piece of legislation.
You want to say something?
And I'm taking the mic, I'll just say it's even if it's not for this bill, how much show up now will bring it back up in the future. So we have to remember not all these fights are one-year fights because they've taken decades to get here.
That's right.
I think that's some really great legislation that we can look to. The only thing I was going to say is that some other legislation that I would urge people to pay attention to that isn't making our justice system less punitive is there is laws this year that make certain crimes where people have to serve 100% of their sentence. There's no option of being out early for good behavior. There's laws that whenever somebody is given a life sentence, that they don't even get things for like credit for the work that they do with the incarceration system. So while we're seeing this great work to put a moratorium in place for the death penalty, there's a lot of other bills that are also trying to make the sentences that people do get longer and less productive ultimately.
May I just say, Minnesota does not have the death penalty, and the sky does not fall. You can do it. You won't. You can do it, and you won't lose it. You will not be less safe if you don't have the death penalty.
Any more questions?
I'm Patty Connor from Cherokee County, and I'm not real sure exactly how I'm going to word this. Everything that's happened in Oklahoma lately surrounding the LGBTQ community and the violence and the hatred that the citizens of Oklahoma who are LGBTQ face every day in their jobs, in school, in their families, sadly. With everything that has been transpiring in the state and in the news media worldwide, because an awful lot of great attention lately, has the climate changed at all with all these targeted bills? Has the climate changed at all within the legislature? Has it made them think about it and see these people, these young people, old people, and old, I have a lot of friends and family that are in that community, and they're scared, and they're leaving. And has all of that changed the climate in the legislature?
Not yet. I don't think yet. I mean, when you look at my colleague, my fellow state senator using completely unacceptable language to describe a deceased child from the LGBTQ community, and then the response has been lackluster. So he is still participating fully in the Senate. He had, as far as we know, he faced no censorship in the Senate or punishment in the Senate. So I think you see what the attitude is. I think we may have a slight lull in the worst bills, at least on the Senate side of the House stop playing. We'll see soon enough, right? But we have had several years in a row attacking transgender Oklahomans, and I don't see that lighting up. I think we're going to have to see a consistent movement from our community showing that love. I think one of the most impactful things from that Tahlequah event where these remarks were made was that there were people there who demanded that these legislators speak to their bad bills and asked multiple times in order to push them that they were running bills that were hurtful to people. And I thought that was the most impactful part of that panel. Now, unfortunately, people have been saying horrible things, but now it's out there, so we've got to show up more. I've seen some very good activism at the Capitol. I think I've seen more activism in terms of the P-flag and some of the other groups. I think we need to see allies, a lot more allies showing up and saying that it's not okay.
She wanted this one of the students was asking. She had her hand up for a while.
Okay.
I vote in Cleveland County, but I'm originally from a small town in Kansas. So my whole family moved down to Oklahoma several years back, and we're from a very rural group. And I've noticed more and more in politics, there's kind of a push towards conspiracy, especially like related to, oh, everything is controlled by this shadow government or whatever. And so I've noticed that, especially with a lot of like my rural family, it's leading to folks not wanting to vote because, oh, well, if the shadow is controlling it, why should I vote? And as of late, I've started to care a lot more about voting, especially with my friend Matthew kind of encouraging me to actually care. So my question would be, do y'all have any pointers for when like engaging with folks that have lost faith in our election process? Like how to maybe help them see like, hey, you should vote, you can vote, and this is suppression as like a psyop. Yes, like how can I help the people who actually want to vote participate in this process?
I'd say the first thing is that if somebody is dead set on not voting, then don't waste your time. I mean that some people may disagree, but then most people are not dead set on not voting. Most people are not dead set on not voting. When people are cynical about voting, first of all, you find the issue that they care about, and you tell them, look, the Dems are going to do this. Most people will vote if there's something to go to the polls for, including a candidate. So if you tell them, hey, Arturo's on the ballot, you got to go vote for him, that might matter. And that's why you should run, even if you may not win, because you're going to get people to the polls that way. The second thing is, you're right, and so is Amanda was right about people not voting because they don't have time. That's why we have to have more rules to allow early voting and other alternative ways to vote, because if you are pulling long shifts, you might not make it. So this is why early voting is a working people's democracy measure. The other thing is you got to point out to people, they're working real hard to stop you from voting. Why are they doing that? Ooh, there's a conspiracy. You should thwart the conspiracy by voting. And then the other thing is, and you all know this, but I'll just make it clear. Conspiracy theory is a political act engaged in by specific people who want to sow this idea. So Alex Jones was actively trying to promote this line of thinking that you're talking about. And there's a bunch of others too. These conspiracies, they don't hatch out of nowhere. They come from somewhere. You all know the Pizzagate thing, right? So you had a guy who made up a lie about pedophiles in Washington. This poor fool drives hours and hours and hours, thinks that there are pedophile victims in the basement of the pizza place, goes to find out there's no basement at all. So these things are dangerous. They hurt people. But don't think they're just in the air. No, it is a political strategy. People doing it are Alex Jones. Alex Jones said that the Sandy Hook thing was made up and it was a false flag. Right? You understand? So, and then, look, like it or not, they do have folks in Russia and who are just trying to undermine American confidence in democracy and are shooting messages over here all the time to get the unsuspecting to bite. But let me tell you, voter turnout is one of our main strategies to get this thing turned around. If they want us to not vote, we absolutely should. And we've got to go out. What if we said in Oklahoma we're going to go up 3% every year? That's a raw number of people per month, per precinct, that each one of us have to go out and get. And then we put the monitors up and we keep count. How are we doing? And then when you go to other states and fundraise for the Oklahoma Democratic Party, when you go to other states like Minnesota, California, Washington, D.C., for the Oklahoma Democratic Party, you tell them we have a goal to increase voter turnout 3% every year for 10 years. That's going to make the state blue again, won't you invest? People will invest in that, but if you just tell them we need money, please give it to us, so does everybody. But if you tell them, here's our goal, we're going to get you 2 new Democratic senators from Oklahoma in 10 years, that's worth fighting for. So what I'm saying, use turnout and use voter turnout and things like this to really do it. But first of all, you got to know when to stop talking to some people. And sometimes you talk to them for 10 minutes and you don't get them, move on. But then don't be surprised if the next day or the next week or the next month, that person's not coming back to you to say, what were you saying about voting again? Because people are not static. They're not locked in a box. They change their minds. And they might just need a little time to cogitate on it. And then also remember the story about, I have a grandfather, I have a wolf on my shoulder, one good, one bad. Which one's gonna win? Grandfather says the one you feed. So feed the good, and I'm telling you, we can have blue Oklahoma again. It can happen, but it's gonna start in this room, going to increase turnout one by one by one by one.
I think the first thing we need to say is Donald Trump might be president. I think that's motivation enough to get out there. He's probably the most dangerous man in this world. But on another note, I think the most important thing for you personally is to get involved in organizations like the Oklahoma Democratic Party. Get involved. What are those particular issues? And I think once you do that, you will realize that voting is just so very important. That's the only way we can make change.
Go, do it.
Hi, so I would like to direct this question to Attorney General Ellison for an out-of-state perspective, but would still love to hear answers from the other Oklahoma legislators. So obviously, we are sitting in the student section. Most of us are a part of the College Democrats. And so we are trying to get more students engaged in the political process.
Good.
So I'm wondering what in Minnesota or other places in Oklahoma, have you seen any effective strategies or initiatives implemented to engage students in the political process and get them out to vote?
Yeah, but I gotta tell you, it's all just time to task. There's no magic wand, man. You just gotta be on campus, you gotta stay on campus, you gotta go through the dorms, you gotta knock on doors, you gotta have forums, you gotta invite people like this down to talk to the students. You might want to bring it to them. Pizza always helps. Pizza's a very good draw. And I want to commend whoever brought refreshments, because that is a very important organizing tool right there. But so we have our college gyms and all that kind of stuff, but then we make sure that we do a lot of listening, and again, we know, going back to Jason's point, you want to win this coming election in November, you gotta have the campus. You got to. It's indispensable. And so what do young people really care about? Sometimes young people don't care about things that are in their direct material interest. That goes for all age groups, by the way. But a lot of young people are concerned about what's going on in Gaza right now. Let's talk about that. There's one person who's going to try to put pressure and is mentioned openly. They want to ceasefire. And one person forget about it. But that might not be their issue. They might care about choice. Because of women your age, you're going through something that a lot of the women who've been around here longer than you never saw. They grew up with rubber. You're not. And that might motivate people. So you gotta find, so here's the thing. If you go fishing, you do not fish with the bait that you like. Fish with the bait the fish likes. So you gotta do a lot of active listening, right? But the main thing remember what I said about presence? Did y'all hear me say something about presence? I really meant that. I wasn't just talking. The more time you spend with them, the more you're going to get them out. And you gotta get office holders, and you gotta get activists, and you gotta listen. And then you deliver. I'll be real quick and say this. Forgive me, but I will say this. This goes for everyone. Within a relationship, anything, we can do anything. Outside of a relationship, we can't do nothing. If she handed me a Tic Tac and she didn't know me, I might think, oh, you're still my residence. But if this is my buddy now, and she hands me a Tic Tac, I'm saying, thank you. Was I that bad? But it's a relationship, right? What we need to do is form a relationship with our youth, and then we can do anything. And we tell them voting is just one thing. Sometimes we put too much emphasis on voting. We act like voting is the only way to do a political act. Protesting is a political act too. Letter to the editor is a political act too. I mean, there's all kinds of ways to engage in politics. Voting is one of them. Why leave that on the table? So I can go on, but thank you for the question. It's a very good one.
I'd say a big thing, because recognizing, I think that a lot of young people crave humanity. That's why I think things like TikToks and Reels tend to be very effective, is because it's a human talking to directly the person that's watching them. Just humanizing issues, and then given that a lot of young people, they're paying a lot of attention to what's going on in Gaza, it's because they're seeing human beings being, unfortunately, eradicated. And it ties into like that emotion, that personal connection that we have with humanity. So thinking about those issues that we have and just humanizing them and recognizing that, they are directly impacting us. I'd say that'd be a big thing, just talking about it, just talking about what's going on and sharing with people that, our perspectives, young perspectives, really matter a lot. Because, like I mentioned earlier, these policies impact every aspect of our lives and the way we're going to continue to live our lives. And it is access to certain rights. So we have a huge buy-in into these things, and I think just being able to humanize and also vocalize it, because oftentimes people don't recognize just how impactful a lot of decisions being made at the state level impact us. But humanizing and localizing those issues and making it specific to just how they're impacting all our communities, and talking about them through, the tools that we have at our disposal, like, social media.
This is our last question.
God, I'll try to make it a good one. Hi, my name is Lauren. I am a young person, young dim, but also a consultant in this state, and I've been doing this work for, Jesus Christ, 6 years now. I started on Congresswoman Kendra Barnes' campaign in 2018. And that was a really great experience where we flipped a seat. And then in 2020, everybody was paying attention to Congressional District 5 in Oklahoma. They wanted to hold that seat. National money came in. It was everywhere. Day after the election, seat doesn't flip. All of that goes away. As a fundraiser in this state, I have also worked in other states, and I've seen in Virginia these past elections, money flowing in like water. So easy. And then I turn around and I see these organizations that are giving in Virginia, raising off of things that are happening in Oklahoma. And none of that money comes back to Oklahoma. You're raising off of the most extreme abortion ban in the state, and then you're spending it in a different state. And when our candidates reach out to these organizations, they're like, oh, bless your heart, thank you for running, but no, it's not competitive enough. We can't do anything for you. How do we get out-of-state organizations to recognize that we are doing the work in Oklahoma? Not every politics, in my opinion, is not zero-sum game. We all know this. Wins matter. We had a candidate down the lot who beat the number by 10 points. He lost, but he still outperformed by 10 points. Almost every single statewide candidate outperforms Joe Biden by double digits. What can we do to get people to actually pay attention to us and not just pat us in the head and say, maybe next cycle? Because I've been hearing maybe next cycle for 4 cycles.
Lauren's right. I'm with her.
start from within and then reach out. Because if we don't start here, like as I said, meetings such as these, where we're organizing, where we're talking about some specific issues and educating folks on these important issues, no one is going to come out and say this. It's about us. It's about us working together and making sure that more Democrats are elected.
For the record, we hear this about tribal issues too. They often look at Oklahoma as a flyover state. And I think that Jason, Representative Lowe, is right about it. I think that we internally have to do the work to make things look a little bit more balanced to them so that they don't view us as this loss of a red state. Especially, again, when you talk about voter engagement, it's very low here. So I think we need to improve both of those numbers. I think a subject that I really nerd out about in Oklahoma is, yes, federally, things look the way that they do. Citizens United really changed things when it comes to political campaigns. But we as a state and even municipalities do have the freedom to implement election laws and standards. There's certain cities and other states that have done things like went ahead and used a public election fund that required people to sign an affidavit, candidates to sign an affidavit that you're going to be beholden to a certain contribution limit. And that if you don't want to be beholden to that, then you have extra reporting requirements and things like that. So I think that there is stuff that can be done on more of a local level. Does that mean that our state government wouldn't see maybe smaller municipalities? I think there's even a population cap. I think it has to be under a certain population to be able to do that in your area. And that doesn't mean that the state wouldn't try to roll that back and supersede local control like we've seen. But I think that if we could make those happen before they caught on, that would be really helpful, at least in local races. State, we're still going to need to elect more Democrats.
All right, thank you all so very much for coming. Please give our panel a round of applause. Okay, so that is the end of our program. If you want to get to the reception, we'll see you later. If you still want to buy tickets to the reception, find more.
Hey, AJ, would you come here? You.
I would never say anything negative about this song. That's all right. 1, 2, 3.
This has been a special presentation of the Oklahoma Democratic Party discussion panel held on March 9, 2024 at the University of Oklahoma. As Democrats, we must always make a personal pledge. I will promote and support Democrats. I will register Democrats. I will vote for Democrats, and I will elect Democrats. Thank you for watching Coffee with Democrats. Until next time, please be safe.